This administration is following all federal court orders.
Madam Secretary, this is a simple question.
It's the president's prerogative on conversations that happen with the president of El Salvador.
I ask a simple question. We have a limited amount of time. I just asked you, Madam Secretary, whether or not you or the Department of Homeland Security are taking any action to facilitate the 9-0 Supreme Court decision to facilitate his return. This is a very simple question. Are you taking any action to facilitate his return, or are you not?
This administration is following and complying with all federal court orders to make sure that we.
So you are because the court ordered that you facilitate his return. So you are facilitating his return.
Sir, Senator, thank you for the question. But what I would tell you is that we are following court orders and that your advocacy for a known terrorist is alarming to me.
Madam Secretary.
It's alarming to me because he's a human smuggler.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to have to reclaim
and a terrorist.
You ever watch a Republican official get so tangled in her own talking points that she forgets what the law even is? That was Kristi Noem today, spinning, dodging, and ducking, while Senator Chris Van Hollen calmly dismantled her with one line that should echo through every hearing room in Washington. I'm not vouching for the man. I'm vouching for his due process. That's what real leadership looks like. And this exchange, it wasn't just political theater. It was a moment where the truth actually fought back.
Senator Van Hollen.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chairman. Madam Secretary, it's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
And I was glad to see in your recent testimony that you reaffirmed your obligations to uphold the Constitution of the United States. And I understand you had an exchange with Senator Murphy on the Abrego Garcia case. And so I'm just going to put the question directly to you. Are you or DHS doing anything to comply with the 9-0 Supreme Court order to facilitate his return to the United States? Just yes or no.
This administration is following all federal court orders.
Madam Secretary, this is a simple question.
It's the president's prerogative on conversations that happen with the president of El Salvador.
I ask a simple question. We have a limited amount of time. I just asked you, Madam Secretary, whether or not you or the Department of Homeland Security are taking any action to facilitate the 9-0 Supreme Court decision to facilitate his return. This is a very simple question. Are you taking any action to facilitate his return, or are you not?
This administration is following and complying with all federal court orders to make sure that we.
So you are because the court ordered that you facilitate his return. So you are facilitating his return.
Sir, Senator, thank you for the question. But what I would tell you is that we are following court orders and that your advocacy for a known terrorist is alarming to me.
Madam Secretary.
It's alarming to me because he's a human smuggler.
Madam Secretary, I'm going to have to reclaim
and a terrorist, and he's not a U.S. citizen. He's a citizen of El Salvador, and he's home. If he were to come back
Madam
here,
Secretary,
we would take him immediately.
All right, I'm going to have to, Madam Secretary, you should know a couple facts then, which is, number one, in 2019, the immigration court said that he should not be returned to El Salvador because it would put his life in danger. The Trump administration at the time did not appeal that decision. After that, he got a work permit and was working legally in the United States of America. This is also why the district court and the appellate court and the Supreme Court have ruled as they have. I suggest that rather than make these statements here, that you and the Trump administration make them in court under oath, because despite what you just said, the federal district court whose judge is hearing this case right now said, and I'm quoting, that the administration has provided no evidence linking Abrego Garcia to MS-13 or any other terrorist activity. I'm not vouching for the man. I'm vouching for his due process rights.
Yes, you are, sir. You've been vouching for
Madam
him.
Secretary, with respect.
I would suggest that you defend and stand alongside the victims of illegal crime.
This is political rhetoric.
The citizens who live here and are United States Americans. I would suggest you advococate for them as hard as you do for foreign terrorists.
I know you're doing a political speech here.
I'm
I get
not,
it.
sir.
I'm asking questions of law. No, you're just spewing rhetoric.
I truly believe this.
You're spewing rhetoric. Let me ask you this. Do you agree with Justice Scalia in the Supreme Court opinion in Reno v. Flores that, I'm quoting, "It is well established that the Fifth Amendment entitles aliens to due process of law in deportation proceedings." End of quote.
Sir, we are utilizing every due process tool that this Congress has afforded us.
The
Congress decides what
Madam
due process
Secretary,
is appropriate for every situation. Expedited removal is a due process that you have afforded us that we are utilizing. The Alien Enemies Act.
I'm going to
is another
reclaim my
tool that
time,
we're
Madam
utilizing.
Secretary.
So
You
we are
are,
giving due
Madam
process
Secretary.
and using the tools
Madam
that
Secretary,
this Congress has given us.
this is really, I'm asking sort of simple questions of law and simple questions like, are you complying with the 9-0 Supreme Court decision? And you seem to think that's some kind of trick question. Let me ask you this. You were down at CCOT in El Salvador, and you said, and that I'm quoting, it is one of the tools in the toolkit that we will use. And it's well known that the Trump administration is paying the government of El Salvador to keep these individuals, including those who the U.S. courts have determined were illegally taken out of the country in violation of their due process rights. Have you seen the grant document between the United States and the government of El Salvador with respect to the CCOT?
It's important that everybody knows the consequences of what happens for their actions in this country. When you break the law and you're a member of a foreign terrorist organization,
I asked you a question. Have you seen the document? This is not hard.
Yes, I have.
Okay. And what are the provisions of the document? So do you know what entities in El Salvador are receiving the funds?
I'm sure you can see this document as well and have looked at it for evaluation.
I'm glad you raised that, Madam Secretary, because I sent you a letter along with many of my colleagues here on April 8th asking for, among other things, that document. Will you respond to the letter that we sent?
I will respond to your letter.
Thank you. Can I get some sense of when?
We will take a look at it. I don't remember seeing your letter yet, but I will certainly take a look at it.
Well, it's been there over a month.
The senator's time has expired.
Madam Chair.
Senator Kennedy?
Madam Chair.
Madam Secretary.
The Secretary, I have some additional questions.
No, sir, that's up to you to manage that time. Senator Kennedy.
Madam Secretary.
I need a little help from it.
All right, folks, buckle in, because what we just watched wasn't just a Senate hearing. It was a lesson in accountability, and Senator Chris Van Hollen gave Secretary Kristi Noem a masterclass in what it looks like when a Democrat stands up and says, enough is enough. You could feel the tension in that room. Noem came in with talking points, deflections, and a predictable mix of performative outrage, all the things Republicans use when they've got no facts and no law on their side. But Van Hollen wasn't playing games. He was there for the truth. He was there for the law. And when she tried to twist the facts, he cut right through it. Here's what went down. The case they were talking about, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, went all the way to the Supreme Court. And not just any ruling, a 9-0 decision. Let that sink in. You can't get a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling on what day it is, but somehow on this case, every justice, liberal, conservative, moderate, agreed. That means this isn't about ideology. It's about law. It's about due process. It's about whether this country still follows the Constitution, or whether MAGA politicians think they can just ignore it whenever it gets in their way. And that's where Kristi Noem stumbled hard. When Van Hollen pressed her, calmly, directly, on whether DHS was following that Supreme Court ruling, she didn't answer. Instead, she launched into a campaign speech. "Are you saying you stand with criminals?" she fired back. "Are you siding with a man who—" And Van Hollen didn't flinch. He stopped her cold. "I'm not vouching for the man," he said. "I'm vouching for his due process." Boom. That's the line. That's the soundbite. That's what democracy sounds like when someone actually defends it. Because that's the problem with Republicans today. They wrap themselves in the flag, shout law and order, and then turn around and trample the very Constitution they pretend to defend. They cheer on the Supreme Court when it rolls back women's rights or guts voting protections, but the second it tells them something they don't want to hear, suddenly it's activist judges and corrupt institutions. You can't have it both ways. Either you believe in the rule of law or you believe in power. Republicans have made their choice. Democrats, thankfully, are still standing for the law. Now, let's be real. This isn't about Garcia as a person. No one's vouching for his past or his record. What Van Hollen was saying, and what Noem refused to understand, is that the rule of law protects everyone, or it protects no one. Because when the government starts picking and choosing who gets due process, it's only a matter of time before that list grows. Maybe next it's a journalist, then it's a protester, then it's you. And that's the thing Republicans never want to admit. Their brand of toughness isn't about safety or justice. It's about control. It's about demonizing immigrants, scapegoating the vulnerable, and turning every complex issue into a campaign slogan. They call Democrats weak, but I'll tell you what weakness looks like: hiding behind fear and hate because you don't have the courage to lead with truth. Van Hollen showed strength, real strength, the kind that doesn't come from volume or from bluster, but from standing firm on principle. He reminded America that democracy isn't about who you like, it's about fairness. And let's take a moment here to talk about Kristi Noem. This is the same governor who tried to build her brand on law and order while picking fights with the federal government, downplaying COVID deaths, and turning her state into a testing ground for MAGA politics. But when it came time to answer a real question about following a unanimous Supreme Court ruling, she folded. She didn't have a legal argument. She didn't even try to offer one. Just more noise. That's why Van Hollen's response matters, because Democrats are tired of playing defense while Republicans use lies as strategy. He didn't let her drag him into her framing. He flipped it. He said, this isn't about him. This is about the law. That's the clarity Democrats need to keep bringing, because the American people are watching. They're tired of the culture wars, the chaos, the conspiracy theories. They want leaders who actually defend democracy, not dismantle it. And let's connect this to the bigger picture. We're seeing the same pattern everywhere. The GOP attacks the FBI when it investigates Trump. They attack the Justice Department when it prosecutes insurrectionists. They attack the Supreme Court when it rules against their overreach. It's all the same playbook. Discredit institutions, weaponize grievance, and then claim victimhood. But the truth is simple. If you believe in democracy, you have to believe in due process. That's the line Van Hollen drew today, and it's a line Democrats should hold. Now, here's the message we should all take away. Democrats don't need to run from these debates. They need to lean in. When Republicans accuse them of being soft, remind them that real courage is following the law, even when it doesn't fit your politics. When they throw mud, throw facts. When they go low, don't just go high, go hard with the truth. Because the truth is, the GOP has built a movement around fear. But fear doesn't build a country. Law does. Fairness does. Accountability does. So here's the bottom line. Chris Van Hollen didn't just defend one case. He defended the Constitution, and he reminded every American watching that Democrats are the party of the rule of law. When he said, "I'm not vouching for the man, I'm vouching for his due process," that was a statement about who we are as a nation, about whether America still means what it says when it talks about liberty and justice for all. And you better believe people were listening. Because if the right keeps trying to destroy faith in the courts, in the press, in elections, then the left has to be the voice that defends them. That's the only way democracy survives this era of chaos. So yeah, this wasn't just a heated exchange. It was a defining one. It showed what happens when a Democrat refuses to play on the GOP's terms and instead reclaims the conversation around values, law, and truth. And that's what Dem Voice is all about, calling it like it is, standing with those who defend democracy, and never backing down from the fight.